Saw X, the latest installment in the Saw series, starring Tobin Bell.
I just through my research found out that the Chris Rock version was number 9, so this is actually the number 10 movie in the Saw series.
Awesome.
Continue.
And fun fact, how many actual Saws have you seen?
I've seen probably 7 of the 10 Saw movies.
I've only seen 1. Spoiler.
Oh.
So,
yeah. I've seen them. I've seen the majority of them.
I didn't watch any of them before this. Usually I like to do that, but I didn't really have the time. And so I was actually kind of curious. I kind of felt blind, but then once the movie started getting into it, I was like, oh, okay, I remember the premise. So I don't think it's important.
This is a very interesting movie. This is an interesting movie to see for the first time because the way that this one's done is so unique.
I think it would have been amazing to watch it the first time
compared to the other Saw movies. Go ahead, Paul. Let's hear your review.
That's gonna go into my review. Just a couple quick numbers on it. Again, budget 13, made 32 worldwide. So this is already a very profitable film.
Only 13 as a budget.
Yeah, that's amazing. By the way, that's incredible. Horror films. This is why it's such a big business.
Reservoir Dogs, I think, was 10.
Yeah, they're so efficient as movies because they're not super expensive, and this was really well done. So I really like this movie. At least I like this movie. I would give this overall a 7.
Go on.
Well, because I'm not a huge like horror guy, and this is more of like the pain and punishment type versus like what was the ones we just seen? The Annabelle, all those
like Annabelle,
which are more like spiritual, spooky kind of thing.
Yeah,
I prefer those over this kind. But with that being said, I absolutely loved the first half of this film. The setup of this film I thought was one of the best in this genre ever. You almost forget you're watching a Saw movie, because at one point I'm just like, I don't even know what Saw's about but I'm loving where this movie is going, and it's such an incredible setup that overall I think it was absolutely worth seeing. The ending and the middle to the end gets right back into the Saw world. But the setup is just really, really great. Pretty unique in terms of how long they spent on the setup.
Yeah. But
I think it was absolutely worth it. And I just absolutely... And again, I forgot a lot of the little points between film to film. I don't want to give that away. I don't think it's necessary. But you don't need to have seen any Saw film like Pete was mentioning. I think that's the beautiful thing of this film. This movie really, really does stand on its own, and that's what makes a very good sequel. And we were even talking about the Expendables last week. What this movie did so well was it introduced new elements of it, but when a movie can stand on by itself and doesn't need the other sequels, it makes it that much more better. But then the adding to the other elements are just extra layers to it, which overall adds to the experience. So I would say in general, check this out. If you're on a fringe horror thing, if you're going with somebody, I think you can manage it. It was entertaining, regardless. So
right. Well, I mean, the thing that I love about this iteration, I mean, Fast X is the 10th installment of a Fast and the Furious movie, and it increasingly gets more and more ridiculous as you watch these films. And the Saw movies were headed in that. And the Saw movies were and the Saw movies were headed in that direction of ridiculousness, where it was, how can we top the latest gadget that is going to actually destroy somebody and make you cringe and want to vomit everywhere? The director, Kevin Greutert, the reason why I love this movie...
You nailed that one.
Thank you. He was the editor of every Saw movie from the very inception of this franchise. So he knows this franchise. He knows this IP. He's lived it. He's breathed it. As you know, as an editor, you're a storyteller. You're immersed in this world to the point of you probably understand it better than the director in some cases. So in this film, he was able to take a movie that was very cringe-worthy at time. I mean, you still get the elements of, oh my god, I can't watch, and I'm very tense, and I'm going to vomit because that's really horrible. If that was happening to me, I would die. But there is such a massive amount of story. There's a massive amount of heart in this movie to an extent. You are rooting for Saw. You're rooting for Jigsaw in this movie because of the atrocities that were done to him. And you actually get a sense of where he's coming from. Because this movie chronologically is supposed to take place between 1 and 2. So this is supposed to be Saw...
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
This is supposed to be Saw 1.5 in a way, even though it's the 10th installment. This is supposed to be...
Where'd you get that from?
I have people, I talk to them,
Okay.
I have insider information. And my information is absolutely correct. This is supposed to be in between Saws 1 and 2. And so when you watch this movie, you start to understand where Jigsaw is coming from and why he becomes the monster, quote unquote, that he is. Even though, at the end of the day, it's almost like Dexter.
Yeah.
Dexter's a serial killer who only kills other serial killers. Jigsaw...
Film takes place between Saw and Saw 2.
Thank you. Jigsaw, he only tortures people, but he gives people an option to better their lives. So there's a way to kind of connect with his message in a way. It's a little bit more extreme than maybe some people would take as their approach. However, this might be, outside of the first one, my favorite Saw movie. 100% go see this movie. It will make you cringe, but be prepared for a story because it is a real story and you will enjoy yourself throughout.
Yeah, I actually like this more than the first Saw. I mean, I do slightly remember the first Saw. I don't necessarily need to ever see this one. I would watch again, I think.
Yeah.
Again, it's a really great story and journey. And this was the highest rated Saw of all time. 85%, 50% was Saw number 1. So that should tell you.
In our last podcast, you told me what the pre-rating was basically for this film. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How could it be that high? This is why. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to our number 1 principle, guys, which is story, story, story. When you make a story, you can make 10 installments, and the 10th one can still just be as fresh. And it just shows that they really spent the effort on this story. Again, I think it has a lot to do. I agree with the fact that Kevin Greutert is both the director and the editor because he is very well immersed. And then you can sometimes, because you understand the backstory of these characters, you can create something out of nothing. So good job there on the Saw team.
Thank you. Well done, for sure.
Next, we have...
Oh, you know what Saw 10 didn't have? It didn't have a giant ball crashing through the city of Rome, destroying everything.
Right.
So, I mean, it was a good call to cut that from the final picture.
Yeah, so,
What's the next movie?
Fast X does have that. This one does not.